Well, greetings everyone. Today we are going to hear from Jeff Karls. So, Jeff, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to share some insights with us today. We appreciate that.
Sure thing. Glad to be with you.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about, who you are, what your business is, how long you've been in business. So, what would be important for us to know about you and your business?
Sure. My wife Jenny and I own and operate the Quasar Drive-In Theater in Valley, Nebraska, just west of Lincoln. We've been in business for 3 years. We started our planning stages in about 2013, so kind of been into this adventure for just a little bit under 10 years. And yeah, just joining you today to answer any questions you might have and kind of let you have a glimpse behind the curtain of what it takes to run kind of a unique theater, but all theaters are essentially the same at the root. So
Love it. Well, the nostalgia that interests me, right, about the drive-in theater and growing up and the way I did, and the days when we couldn't wait to go to the drive-in movies type of thing. So there is kind of a niche market that you have there with your, if I understand what it is your company's about.
for sure, yeah, that was something, and we had kind of identified the need. Jenny and I, she's my second wife, so I have two older kids, and we got to experience the Council Bluffs Drive-In in Lake Manawa when it was open. And that place closed in 2006. Jenny and I have two boys together, and the oldest was born in 2015. So we kind of wanted to have something like that for those guys to experience. It was something that had been gone. When the summer we opened, Council Bluffs had been gone for 15 years, so there was an entire generation of folks that had not experienced the drive-in theater or kind of what they were all about. It's before the show is kind of the most fun. It's like a community center. It's everybody's out. It's like a kind of like a big tailgate party atmosphere. Everybody's got chairs out, sitting in the back pickup trucks, and we wanted to cultivate that here, because there's honestly not that many things for especially families with young kids to come out and do every weekend that's affordable. So it was something that we saw the need there and wanted to kind of fill that. And I think we've succeeded in some extent. I know we've got a lot of families that come out every weekend that we love to see. Our regulars come out, they kind of have their own little space and get it set up, and that's but that's where it started. We wanted to bring that back for families around here because it was just something that was missing.
Beautiful. So the vision of something started at least 10 years ago, and 3 years ago you put it in motion. So let's talk about that a little bit. How did that planning period, the investment of time, energy, and money that goes into planning, talk a little bit about the benefit of that, maybe what you learned and what you might share with others from that insight.
Sure. A big part of our business is location, and I guess a big part of a lot of businesses, that you actually expect visitors to. Any bricks and mortar business will tell you that location is key. We needed to be outside of a city because of the ambient light and noise, and just encroachment from other development near. Most of the drive-in theaters that were built back in the 40s to 60s were on the outskirts of town, or they were in the country. So that all started with a property hunt, and we looked at different locations around Ashland and between Omaha and Lincoln because we knew we needed to have that proximity to the big population bases to be able to draw. As it worked out, we found 40 acres of land that was on an auction near Valley, and it just things worked out in our favor. We were pretty um, crestfallen to have some deals fall through on property near Gretna and some other things that didn't work out. But as we found, later found, it was much better suited to be where we're at now because we're in close proximity time wise from most of the Omaha metro. We're about 20-25 minutes away from even some of the more remote areas of the city, and it's about a 50 to 55 minute drive from Lincoln because a drive-in will draw from up to 50-60 miles away. So, and being the only drive-in theater, actual genuine drive-in theater in this area, we draw from as far. I had a guy that that comes out 5 or 6 times a season from Wyoming. That's a drive-in fan, and we get folks from as far as Clarinda, Iowa, and the Red Oak area, and folks from Council Bluffs and Bellevue, and kind of the far edges of that radius. So it's really great to see that they'll come out. We've got some good main corridor highways that lead right to our exit on Highway 36 there. So it was, everything happens for a reason. So I'm kind of glad we didn't end up in some of the places that we did, because they've already been developed right up to, and that causes a big problem with the longevity of a drive-in theater, is when you have neighboring housing developments and things like that that come in close. So.
Beautiful. So the experience that you're after becomes the marketing, right? What is that marketing story that you describe, that you're trying to create, or that you are creating, to draw people from Wyoming and other spaces, let alone your metro areas?
So a lot of the marketing that we do is pretty grassroots. I don't spend anything on social marketing. All of our Facebook marketing is organic, which is also kind of serves with our in-person clientele. They'll bring a family back. A family will come out and experience the drive-in once, and then they'll bring another family with them the next time, or they'll tell another family about it. And it's like we discussed before, that networking, if they're willing to take that experience and put their reputation in that experience, when they tell one of their friends to come out and say, hey, you got to go check this place out, they've put both of our reputations on the line. Because if they have a bad experience, like, oh, that place sucked, what did you send me there for? That's where we really thrive. If I can get somebody to come out and experience the drive-in for a weekend, they become a customer. And that's how we've really taken kind of a shoestring budget. I only spend about $10,000 a season on marketing, and a lot of that goes into radio ads to try to explore different markets where we're not in that demographic bucket, or where I know we have a movie series coming up, like with Barbie and some of the other things we did this summer, where we're shifting into different customer bases. So I guess the long story short is that I've really relied a lot on word of mouth, and where we shine is when we can get them out there. They'll leave shining reviews, and we try to deliver the best experience possible. And that's one of those things. Again, we talked about having a team that can really carry the ball even when you're not there. Everybody that we have on staff really wants to be there. We have some older staff. We have some folks that have been there all 3 years that we've been open. They come back every summer, which is difficult for seasonal work. I mean, it's not like you're gonna drop your part-time job at Menards or Target or wherever it is that you've got an evening job and say, nope, sorry, I got to do this drive-in thing this summer. But some of them do, and they pick up and right where they left off, and they can cross train folks. And that's the most important thing to all of us out there, are our customers. And when I have some of our customers have a hard time discerning who the owners are, which is fantastic. They'll ask our box office guy, Richard, and say, hey, are you the owner? Because he does care so much, and he has a rapport with customers. And same thing with everybody from, our concession staff to our lot attendants. They all treat the place like it's their own. And, we take pretty good care of our staff too. So that's the reciprocation there is something that, coming from a corporate background, in my job of knowing, how quickly an employee can become a number, that's important to me, to make sure that all of our folks know that we care as much about them as we do our customers' experience, because you are the handler of our customers. So you're the face that they're going to see when they first come here. And that's paid dividends for us.
Beautiful. So let's talk about that a little bit. How big of a team do you have when you're at the peak of your season?
During the full summer swing, we've got about a dozen staffers, and we will cycle through. Just about everybody has a shift during a weekend. We run Thursday night shows. We do a free show on Thursday night, which is just a single feature, usually a retro title that's a classic film, so like an E.T. or something like that. And we've found a way to make that work and repeatable, because with contract movie schedules on first run movies, if you have a for pay show night, they want that movie on screen. So say you have a contract to show, I'll just use one of next year's movies, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, and you've got it booked for this weekend and the weekend after. That Thursday that falls in between, they want that movie on screen that Thursday too. If you're open and selling tickets, they didn't say anything about giving the show away though. So one of the kind of the end arounds that we worked in to be able to figure out how to still serve that up to our customers weekly. We wanted to have a retro movie Thursday night, like a throwback Thursday every week. Our first season, we had a hard time with that. We couldn't get a good cadence on it because we had movies that had to be on screen Thursday night. So you'd have people show up expecting, a retro movie, and there were new movies on, and it was kind of a mess. What we figured out is that we can do a charity show on Thursday nights. So we have a corporate sponsor that will pay the film rights to have that movie and to be able to offer it free admission. And then whatever we collect at the gate, we collect free bill donations at the gate, online through our ticketing system, and at the cash register. We donate those to a different local cause every week. And so we call that Classics with a Cause. And that has really took off this year. We got a lot of engagement from other local businesses that wanted to be involved with being the title sponsor for that and bringing out, whatever, folks were having a hard time finding staffing. So they bring out a table with, some of their recruiting information and things like that. It gave them an avenue to our audience. And it also gave the ability to have some flexibility in where we put, charitable donation money can go to. We helped last year. We helped a kid get a diabetic alert dog. So it's not like you have to donate to a 503c or 501 whatever. It can go to do some real good, where you just hand a kid $1,500 and say, well, here, go get your dog. And he did. I mean, that was probably the most gratifying one, to, like, we got him over the finish line with what they needed to get into the program and get the training and get the dog, and they're thriving with that. So that's probably been the most, I guess, the most fun part of getting that going. But anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there. So our Thursday night show is generally that, and then Friday, Saturday we run double feature first run movies. So like what you would find in a multiplex, and we run 2 movies for 1 ticket. So that's where we kind of try to provide that value for families. If you want to come out, bring the kids out, they're in their pajamas, like you say, you remember the drive-in from your youth experience of, like, mom and dad would bring us out in our footy pajamas, and we'd watch the early show, and then pretend to be asleep for the late show. So
Right?
those split combos work really well for us, with a kids combo first, and then maybe something that's a little bit more tuned to the adults as the second movie, and kind of gives everybody a little bit more value for that whole evening's entertainment then.
Love that. You're creating the experience for families to connect. I love that. So staying with team a little bit, you talked about how they are the handlers of with the customer, right? So they are creating that experience with consistency. I assume that's your goal. What do you look for then when you're looking to add people to the team? What are the qualities that align with what you're looking for to create that experience?
Again, and we've been fairly blessed, through our years in this business so far. Most of our staff has actually sought us out, so we didn't have a terrible time finding staff. I mean, we pay our staff fairly well too, which, again, coming from the corporate world of, dangling a carrot, and, if you do this, then you'll get that. We try to cut a lot of that out and say, look, here's where we're at, here's where we do, our pay structure increases, and this is where you can expect to be. And, the folks, some of the best folks that we have are ones that kind of chased us down and said, hey, I really want to be part of this. This is something that, there's, after this summer was pretty brutal for drive-in theaters. When we started into the business, there were about 350 still operating. At the end of this season, I think there were 275 left, that had closed after COVID. A lot of them got a big shot in the arm with COVID because they were the only theaters that could really operate during that. We were still under construction. We built through the 2020 season and opened in the beginning of 21, which was the absolute worst season in history for movies. There were like 33 new release movies that year, as opposed to we usually have about 175 new releases a year. So our staff they have seen kind of the both ends of the spectrum, from serving 4 cars on the field to having a full house for weeks on end with movies like Barbie and the Super Mario movie this year. We kind of saw a return to normalcy, but our staffers, they're just as nuts as we are. They want to be out there and kind of help be part of the atmosphere and the experience. So
Love that. It's a unique space, no doubt. Let's talk a little bit about time mastery. Is this your full-time work? Do you have other work that you do, and your family? How do you manage time with the personal life and the business life, the integration of those two?
and as much as I hate to admit it, with the big changes that everybody saw through COVID, without those, I don't think we would be able to have managed both the construction and the operation now that we're open. I work for a company in Lincoln, Nebraska that does hot rod parts and race car parts and things like that. I'm a product manager, so I come up with new product ideas. I work with vendors to bring their lines on and manage their goods through our retail sites. Jenny is an architect for Leo Daly in Omaha. And when COVID hit, we both ended up working from home like a lot of people did. And I got 10 hours of free time back every week that I was driving to Lincoln and back. A 2-hour drive a day. That's a lot of extra free time and a lot of extra family time and planning, and the flexibility to be able to go out and be on site when I needed to be. That still kind of pays dividends now. I have the flexibility to go meet the food delivery guy when it's time to drop off food for the weekend and fill the freezers and do all that, or whatever needs to happen. So it's the time management portion of it, being transitioned to work from home, really has made that possible. Because if I were in Lincoln every day from 8 to 5, that would be exceedingly difficult to do and be able to manage, and we'd have to lean a lot more on, I guess, outside help, or have somebody that manage those things remotely for us. But it's just it's a balance. There are things during the week that I need to go out and do for movie prep and things like that, and ingesting movies into the server and test running films to make sure everything works before we're on, live with an audience. But it's just again, it's kind of part of the family business too. I mean, that's what, yeah, everybody, I've got a routine. I usually go out on a Wednesday night and pre-screen stuff for the weekend, and I've got a buddy that comes out to kind of help and keep me company, and that's our time to catch up and do stuff and hang out. And so it's things like that kind of make this lifestyle unique and what it is, and part of what you miss when it's in the off season. We just hosted our last weekend shows this past week. So I've got one more small engagement this coming Saturday, but after that it's deep clean and mothballs until next spring. So yeah, to have extra free time back and have our weekends back is a little bit of a culture shock. We work every weekend from April until November, so we don't typically go and do a lot of the weekend stuff. So now that it's cold, we'll we'll have the opportunity to go do weekend stuff. But
There you go.
yeah.
In living in the Midwest, of course, we know the seasons, right? We have a change of seasons, just as businesses. So whether you're a seasonal business or not, the cycles of business have a tendency. You've got to have the planning time. You've got to, put the plans in place. You got to work the plans, all of that. So there is an element certainly around running a business. So what might be maybe a misconception that you had about, because you've been in business, and what's been a misconception that you bumped into as being a business owner that maybe surprised you that you had to navigate forward with?
There haven't been a terrible, I mean, being in the aspects of business that we've both been in, working from the corporate side of things. I guess there were a lot of things that we thought we might try to do a little differently than that cookie cutter corporate world, handling of, that have worked out fairly well. I guess most of the misconceptions and or things that I've learned about have been through just how shackled the movie industry is by studio guidelines and things like that, and studio regulations and things being off release, and stuff that doesn't necessarily affect an indoor theater as much as it does one that runs double features. For instance, there's a new Fast and Furious movie that's the last of the franchise. God, I hope so. Coming out next summer. And it's a part 2 of whatever, Fast X Part 2. That movie will kill if I can run it with the original Fast and Furious from 1990, whatever that was. Typically, a studio will take off release all of the previous entries in a franchise when there is a new release in that franchise. So they did that with Indiana Jones this past year. You couldn't run Indiana Jones Part 5, whatever, the Dial of Destiny that we had this past summer. You couldn't run that in tandem with any of the old ones, which is, I mean, that's a guaranteed knockdown drag out ticket. I mean, that's an awesome bill that you could put up, but you can't do that because they're off release, so you can't book that movie. Trying to communicate that to the public is difficult, and I'm probably more transparent than I should be with some of those things with our audience, but I think that's also part of what our audience appreciates about us, is that I'm not going to try to bullshit you about what we can't do, and here's where we're at. I can do that movie up to 3 weeks before this new one comes out, but I can't put them together. So would you come out for this one, on a Thursday night, maybe several weeks before this one comes out, and I'll put things up to a vote on our social pages just to see what, to kind of poll our audience, because if I think it's a great idea and they think it's not, they're going to win. So I've just kind of surrendered that to put it before the court and let them decide on a lot of those things. So, and that's been something that I think even some of the bigger corporate places could maybe learn a little bit from, is taking a little bit better, putting a better ear to the ground on what the customers are demanding instead of trying to force demand on things.
Jeff, I think there's real wisdom in what you said, because we like to say that, we get feedback, or we stay in touch with our customer needs and wants and desires. Though you are a living example of how it has to be done as part of your business model. And it's not just a nice one, it's a critical need to have that to guide you for what's next. So thank you for that reminder and that lesson. I'm wondering about this idea of how do you personally learn and grow as a business owner and a business leader in either your management job that you referenced in Lincoln, or as a business owner of this unique service?
Well, again, we talked about how important your staffing and your, who you decide to have on your team, who joins your team, and how they engage and grow in their positions. And we just had an instance this past weekend where we ran a show that I knew was going to be fairly popular. And we do employ quite a few college students who go back to school, and at the end of summer, it's kind of, we have a staff party where we kind of send those guys off and say, it's been a great season, thank you, but we still continue after they leave into the fall. So our fall shows sometimes will not run the highway gate. We don't have the staffing to have 2 gates open, and our customers get how to operate that. So I have just about everybody on our team is cross-trained to do the other jobs that there are to do, and to try to take and move. We had to make some major shuffles to get a line of cars through at our box office gate. So I had to, one of our folks that was in the concession stand normally was working on our highway gate. Our regular box office guy was at the box office, and kind of had to shuffle chess pieces on the board to make it work a lot more smoothly than it was, because we had a lineup starting at the box office. We do what we call Chick-fil-A the line. Our box office is actually made to go around both ways, but with one box office attendant. They typically go up and they work through the driver's side window. I sent an attendant out to go take care of the other side of the line. I went and attended the box office gate off the highway, which is after dark, especially this time of year, fairly quiet, because people don't don't necessarily go to that entrance because it's not as easy to find as the box office gate, and then pulled one of our staffers that was at that gate back into the concession to open another register because we had a line starting to form there. And just being like to try to be proactive with those things more so than reactive, but it was one of those where things built up pretty quick, and we had enough staff. We just had to position them a little bit differently to make everything work out and go pitch in on one of the positions that I know how to do. And that's something that I joke about with those guys a lot of, like, there are a lot of the nuances of their jobs that I'm not very good at. Like, I don't, I'll use that with the customer. Like, hey, the boss is here trying to do this, so please bear with me because I don't know how to run any of this stuff as well as Sarah does or as well as Richard does. So please bear with me. But and that works out great to have folks that can just pick up the ball and run with it. And that's something that we have been able to enjoy a little bit this summer, where we could just step away and go have a weekend. We were able to get away for our anniversary, and we were able to get away for a couple other things that travel for work and things like that too. So it's
Nice.
been, it's all about the people.
It really is. And it's an investment in people. I love to hear you talk about that and to be intentional and mindful about what that is. And I also hear some lessons from COVID in there. It's like, okay, we learned how to become more resilient and more nimble and manage expectations. And here's what we can do instead of focusing on the things that we can't do, especially in your industry as well. So thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering is there anything that you're trying to solve right now? Is there something that's in front of you that you're trying to solve? And what's the process that you use for problem solving or coming up with resolutions?
So our most recent problem was that we have cultivated an audience that expects. Jenny and I are both big Halloween fans, big horror fans, and Taylor Swift threw a big monkey wrench into that this October. We are a single screen theater, so when we book a movie for whatever period of time it may be, that movie appears on that screen for the allocated period of time. So we had to displace a lot of our fall movie schedule I had it in place. I hadn't published a lot of it yet, but I had movies booked all the way through Halloween, actually through the first week in November, because of the way some of the bookings worked out. And then that thing bounced in here like a mirror ball in a graveyard, and that audience is like there to be reckoned with. I mean, they carry a lot of clout, and we knew we had to put that movie on. It had relatively, I don't want to say ridiculous terms, but it was a 4-week commitment. Usually movies are a 2-week commitment. So it overstayed its welcome a little while longer than I would have kept it if I were making the terms, which displaced a lot of our Halloween audience. They couldn't come out and go to, we had a Friday the 13th in October, which was the day that movie came out. So we didn't even get to have anything with Jason this year because we had already done all of our Halloween stuff that we were going to do. So the solution to that is a second screen. So if you have a second screen, then you have somewhere to push other movies and be able to host two drastically different demographics on the same night, which is what we ran into the dire need for this fall. It's always been in the plans to expand to a second screen. The building's actually even built around it. We have a second projection booth and window upstairs that's 180 degrees out from where the existing one is. So that was, again, an audience transparency. I took a beating on social media with a lot of our regular folks, and but a candid explanation of this is how it is, and I can't not do this, because if you want me to never do this again, the way to do that is to suffer through not having Halloween movies this fall so that we can build a second screen in the off season. And hosting a Taylor Swift event and every weekend for these movies. And we really went all out with trying to make that audience feel as at home and welcome. And I know nothing. I learned more about Taylor Swift against my will in the last 2 months than I thought I would ever know. But I have a very good friend whose daughter is the biggest Swiftie that you'll ever meet. She came out and technical advised for us and built decorations and made things to put in the lobby. And her mom came out and did just an awesome job of making the place completely Taylor Swifted, and everything from a pre-show, list of songs and things that you would want to play for the, for that audience to have, to cultivate that environment. And it worked out fantastic. And I think a lot of those folks were first time drive-in visitors, and I know I saw a lot of them back for our Christmas movies this past weekend. So
Nice.
that's one of those things of, you hate to feel like you're neglecting some of the folks that got you to the dance, just to dance with somebody else this year. But I think for the most part, a lot of those customers understood after they were able to blow off their steam and let me have it online or whatever. And we I think we'll be able to do a whole lot more next season, to get on the second screen up and get some things going with different movies. We started out in the time of a movie drought, so 21 was really a bad time to have a multiplex because there wasn't enough product to fill 14 screens or however many. It was a pretty decent time to have single screen because they were still, all the studios were giving each other deference and saying, oh no, we'll take this 2 weeks, and you guys have this next 2 weeks, and then after that we'll release this one. Now they're all trying to step on each other just like they used to. They'll have simultaneous releases weekend to weekend, which is fine for multiplexes. If you've got another screen to shuffle it down to, you just put the new one on the biggest screen you have, and you keep shuffling them down until they fall off your last screen. The choices are a lot tougher with a single screen. You have to decide which horse you're going to pick. So far we've been
Well,
fairly
now that
decent.
now that you're a big Taylor Swift fan, who knows? Maybe she'll write a song about you all and this whole experience at the drive-in movie. Wouldn't that be awesome?
We
Who knows?
tried to draw her out. I mean, like when we had our news broadcast, I'm like, I know you're just 3 hours away. I see you at the football game. You're
That's
not that
right.
far away. You
That's
guys could
right.
cruise up here in that Chevelle and come see a movie.
Well, you never know. She still might. Don't give
Never
up on
know.
that thought. I appreciate all that you've shared with us. There's a lot of nuggets in there from, planning and planning years ahead with the foresight to say, let's build it out so we can add and expand, right? So that planning function in business, regardless of the business, building the team, investing in the team, treating them right, listening to your customer, what they want, learning how to be nimble. If you were to give yourself advice to the younger Jeff, right? What would that look like if I said, here's the advice to my younger Jeff, and you can pick whatever age that younger is. What would it be? What would
Gosh,
the advice to yourself be?
you know, um, it's hard to, yeah, it's hard. I try. There's a reason the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror.
Right?
So I don't really dwell on a whole lot of, I guess, missed opportunities or poor decisions. But one of the things that I would probably do different is I would stay as far away from the SBA and US Bank as I could, because that is probably the most predatory and deceptive business startup model that I've ever seen. I'd rather beg strangers for money on the internet than to go through that
Wow.
again. It took 2.5 years to get financed on this,
Okay.
and yeah, bait and switch all the way down the line. So that would be the first thing that I would probably steer away from. But
Well, even listening to you, I get excited because you've got this dream and you have this vision of building something, and people like me. So, right, you could have maybe considered investors to
mhm,
get seed money started from private investing, and not that we go back and regret. We just say, what could we learn? And so, I'm hearing you say that explore your funding options. If you're a startup, as part of your planning process, and know that there are other ways of doing that, and maybe check those out.
definitely. Yeah. And
Beautiful.
that's, yeah, private investing, angel investing, things like that are things that you need to think about from the perspective of even before you incorporate, because depending on the type of investor, they may want you to be a Delaware type
Right.
of a corp and all of those things. But had those discussions actually with a couple of investors, and one was very candid, and he said, I think this idea is great. He says, and I would have no problem at all funding you. The trouble is here's where I would own you. He says, because as this business grows and you needed to try to buy my portion of the business out, you would take, it would take everything that you had to try to buy my portion out as that target continues to move. He says, so you would run on the treadmill harder to attain this number that I need to be bought out. And the harder you run on the treadmill, the higher that number is going to go. So he put it to me in the simplest terms possible of like, he goes, and that's where we would end up forever. He says, because you'd get to the point where, you know, the business value is this, and this is what it's going to take to buy my equity out in it. So and I appreciate him for that, because that's, you know, that's one of those things that not many people, I guess, from my experience, not many people that get to that position or to get to that station in life would have the scruples to tell you up front and say, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to own you. If we do that, I'm going to own you forever, and you're just going to end up working yourself to death for an unattainable target. So,
well, and I can tell just connecting with you, your values come out in how you create the environment and treat your people. And oftentimes I find that people will mirror that when they know that that's what you value. And so let's just learn from that. You know, he met you in a place to keep it real, and for it to be some more information for you to make some good decisions and right decisions for you and your family and what you're creating. So, you know, I like to find that goodness and that learning and that insight of, you know, how do we show up ourselves, and will others reciprocate? For sure.
yeah, that seems to have served us well, you know, as far as, you know, there's no BS, and this is how it is. You know, sometimes it's a bitter pill when you know, but I'm not going to try to, you know, I'm not going to try to put a whole lot of window dressing on something. If it needs to be addressed, we just get down to it and get it over with and move on. So
Figure it out. Beautiful. So when does the season open? You're sunsetting it here soon, and when does the season open?
I just sent Jenny. It looks like they moved Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters Frozen Kingdom, or Frozen Empire, I think they called it, was supposed to be out for Christmas this year, which was really devastating because we couldn't do Ghostbusters Afterlife. We're, again, big horror fans, love the Ghostbusters franchise. It looks like they have moved it now to March 29th or something to that effect. That's very close, within striking distance. Last year this year we opened April 7th for Super Mario Brothers. So it'll be a little bit release dependent on whatever they're looking at as that spring Easter window type of a release. So look for us between March and mid-April.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if we have to start a outdoor campfire to keep ourselves warm, that's a possibility too, I'm guessing.
No fires. My insurance company doesn't like that, but
Not
sometimes I have one up on the patio because I can make a fire the customers can't,
there
though.
you go. Got it. Controlled,
Yep,
controlled. Who are you
exactly.
gonna call, right? So it could
Right.
be part of staging who are you gonna call?
Well, the
Yep,
movie's called
there you go.
Frozen Empire. I
There
mean,
you
what did you
go.
expect? You know, get
There
your
you
red
go.
parka out and put it on and
Love it.
cosplay.
Love it. Wonderful.
Very good.
Well, thank you. This has been fun just chatting with you, and lots of insights, lots of learning. Thank you for sharing that. And where do we find you again in the spring? In March?
In March, you can find us quasardrivein.com, or just search Quasar on any of your social media and you'll find it, or Google us. We come up with an odd name like that, which is a little bit intentional. It's pretty easy to find us through just about any search.
Love it. Sounds like some good Christmas stocking vouchers or coupons or something that we can put in our stockings as gift giving. That would be
Oh,
awesome.
oh yeah, we have some very nice. In fact, I think I have oh no, I took them out there this weekend. I had a whole stack of our printed gift certificates. Are really nice. I do them. I come from a graphic design and print industry background, so everything that we do is pretty well tailored and is a nice tactical piece, very graphically poppy. So
Nice, nice. Well, thank you, Jeff. I truly appreciate it. And I'm sure our listeners will learn some insights and connect, find out about this gem right here in the Midwest, and hopefully they'll travel over and experience it.
awesome. Well, thank you for the time. I appreciate it, Linda.
You bet.